You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So help me.
So help you.
If it pleases the court, and even if it doesn't please the court, I'm God, Your Honor.
Welcome to Amusing Jews, where we celebrate Jewish contributors and contributions to American popular culture. I'm Jonathan Friedmann.
And I'm Joey Angelfield.
Producer-engineer Mike Tomren is working somewhere behind the scenes. Amusing Jews is a project of Adat Chaverim, Congregation for Humanistic Judaism, the Jewish Museum of the American West, and Atheists United Studios. Hey, Joey, either all gods are real or no gods are real, or so goes the old philosophical paradox. A new novel by today's guest imagines that all gods are in fact real, and that their existence has real-world consequences.
We're delighted to chat with Andrew Rubin, a filmmaker and author whose debut novel is Hell or High Winter. Andrew, welcome to Amusing Jews.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be joining you today.
Your novel is very cinematic, so it's no surprise that you studied film at NYU and are a card-carrying member of the Writers Guild of America. Could you tell us about your background?
I went to NYU Film School, and after I left studying film production, I kind of got into the world of screenwriting, and I've been doing that for, I want to say 15 years. And then at some point, I decided to take the leap into writing this story and trying prose for the first time. And then, I 10 years later, here it is. It's finally getting published. So that's just like my background in a nutshell.
Not that you would know otherwise, but do you think there's something different when a screenwriter writes a novel versus a novelist writing a novel?
Yes, I mean, I've been actually talking a lot about that with other friends who were screenwriters and became novelists. I think being a screenwriter is kind of a little bit of a superpower for switching to novels, because you have to really know how to outline and tell a story. And, features, you have to tell it in 90 pages, 3 acts. It has to move people, keep people invested. You got to set up your characters really quickly. So I think having the discipline and the structure that comes from the world of screenwriting was incredibly helpful. I mean, learning how to write prose was totally different. It was not just like hopping from one bike to another. It was like getting into a whole new, it's like learning how to ride a spaceship or fly a spaceship, excuse me. So it was a whole different experience writing the book. That freedom is sometimes terrifying, though, since there's so many rules and so much structure in screenwriting, and then suddenly you have just a blank page and you have to fill it with everything, instead of a screenplay, which is writing for other people to visualize something, and there's going to be a camera and there's actors and it's a blueprint. You have to be the camera. You have to make sure that someone picking up that book can live inside that world. And follow it along seamlessly and be engaged and entertained.
Your book is pretty hefty, too. Did you ever imagine writing so many words?
No, I never thought I would write. I never even thought I would write more than a screenplay that's like 120. Like you learn very quickly from that, like, oh, don't write too long. And I just sat down and I just started writing. And once I got into the rhythm and sort of figured out what it was to have a voice and prose, I just kept writing. And it was actually a lot longer. So this is the product of a lot of editing. And I think people that know me would say I don't have any problem, with brevity. So it probably made sense that my book was going to turn out to be a little bit on the heftier side. But I think that the genre calls for it too. So it's not something that's a 360-page book wouldn't be out of the ordinary for anything in the realm of fantasy. It's not Game of Thrones length.
Enjoying the show? Click like and subscribe.
For our audience, how would you summarize Hell or High Winter? And would you mind reading a bit from the book?
It's a contemporary fantasy Greek mythology retelling, but in a world where all the gods are still among us, even if they've outlived their relevance. And so the story is a retelling of the Hermes and Persephone myth, which, if people don't know the original myth, Persephone is the goddess of spring and why we have seasons. And in my version, Hermes, the trickster god, the messenger god, is without purpose in the 21st century. And he's living his best immortal life, which is screwing around, acting out. And all that is just going fine until his sister's kidnapped again, which means Earth is plunged into eternal winter. And so he has to go back to hell and do the one thing he's been avoiding for all of his immortal life, which is finally grow up. And in writing the book, and for me, what I found most interesting about and most compelling for me about Hermes is it's his journey of finding his own faith, and this idea of how do you value yourself if you spent your whole life considering your worth about how many people worship you. And so for him, he sort of discovers the most important power in the universe is believing in yourself. And so that's the sort of moral and thematic core for me inside this, what I think is a really fun and entertaining and comedic adventure through the underworld and seeing gods in ways that, it was very fun to imagine the gods as human as possible.
Which I think is part of the whole ancient tradition anyway. Like the more human the gods were, the more entertaining the stories, the more long-lasting their stories.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Greek myths are so prevalent today, even today. It's exactly for that reason why they're so entertaining. They were just as flawed, or perhaps even more flawed, because of their status. And so, they get into a lot of trouble in the ancient myths, and so then bringing that into the 21st century was just as fun, to be able to explore all the problems that they cause and how ill-suited they are for the 21st century. And I can read a little bit of a passage here from the book. And just to set it up, this is a moment when Hermes has made a very big mess, and he is having to smuggle his way back into the United States, into America. And so he's booked himself aboard a cargo ship. Yuri, who smuggled him aboard, was a boiled Ukrainian potato, spotted with moles and red everywhere else from prolonged sun exposure. He visited Hermes in the cargo hold on their first day at sea. Splotchy, unidentifiable tattoos stained his muscles, courtesy of his stint in jail for selling stolen televisions. He preferred to wear the same ratty keep calm and chive on t-shirt, green camo cargo pants, and an over-exuberant smile that craved companionship. Without an invitation, he squatted on a crate across from Hermes, who was playing solitaire. "You're a god, aren't you?" Yuri finally asked, his thick accent giving birth to each vowel. Hermes glanced up. "Kinda." Yuri's grin swelled. He wagged a pudgy finger. Sometimes people had the gift, schizophrenics, as Westerners like to call them. Yuri clearly wasn't a shaman, but maybe his mother was a seer, or he kept the spark that allowed grown-ups to believe in Santa Claus. "Could I pray to you?" he asked, like he was asking to touch a mascot at Disneyland. Hermes revealed another card, 3 of diamonds, no moves. "Wouldn't do you any good." "Doesn't do me any good now. At least I can see you, talk to you, and you talk back." "Yeah, I can talk back." Hermes placed a queen of hearts. "Fuck off." Yuri's laugh sounded like a lawnmower that wouldn't start. "You are my kind of god." "I'm no one's god." His game hit a dead end and Hermes restacked the deck. "No one's god," Yuri repeated. "Where are you from, no one's god?" "Greece." "Ah, which one are you? Not Poseidon, or you wouldn't need me to cross ocean." "And on 8th day, man discovered logic." Yuri wagged that finger again. God of sarcasm. "Bingo." Hermes threw his feet up on a crate, kicked off his sneakers, and let his 4 wings unfurl. It felt good to stretch them. Yuri gasped in wonder. Hermes abandoned the cards and began his ritual cleaning of the sneakers. From the awestruck silence, he knew that Yuri had never seen a miracle, though Hermes didn't count dirty feet as a miracle either. Mortals these days were starved for the divine. All the new religions were so hands-off. Kneeling and pressing palms together doesn't do much more than create a short boost of dopamine, just enough to keep coming back for the next fix. Same as gambling. And as with all routines, these eventually lose their meaning too. Prayer becomes the bathroom rug that's never been washed. Seeing Hermes pick lint from between his toes was enough to transport Yuri to another realm of consciousness, A blissful tear rolled down his cheek. I know who you are. You are Hermes. Nope, those are the purses. I'm Hermes, Hermes said, polishing the yellow and green suede back to mint condition shine. My one endorsement deal, and I can't even afford to buy a fucking bag. Why does Hermes need a purse? To be fair, they started out selling harnesses for horses and, well, it made sense at the time. Why am I explaining anything to you? Yuri wagged a pudgy finger. Ah, god of messengers, farrier of souls, he recited from his primary school memory bank. A+, gold star.
That was awesome.
Thank you for letting me read some of it.
Your novel was a 10-year odyssey. What kept you going?
I want to say faith. Maybe that's the word of the day for this. Um, I it didn't take 10 years to write. It took about 2 years to actually write the first draft. And then I suffered from major imposter syndrome and I stuck it on a shelf. And when I took it back off, I went back and I rewrote almost the whole thing. Just not like a page one, a whole new story, but just as a different writer, um, and with different life experience and different things felt more poignant to me. And so I think in that sense, that kind of gave me the faith to trust it. And also, I started to show it to some people who really helped encourage me and get it out there. Um, so I think faith and other people having faith was definitely what kept it going. Because if I had just listened to myself in that negative space, it probably wouldn't have found itself on the shelves.
Other than ancient mythology, what were some of your inspirations for writing the book in terms of maybe novelists, other writers, that sort of thing?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I'm just such a cinema junkie, so it's always movies and the tone of movies. But I have to point to one book and an author in particular that really inspired this, which was Lev Grossman. I read The Magicians, and I just loved the sort of humor and the playfulness that he took. And it was what sparked me to that book was someone described it as Harry Potter for adults. And I just thought this, not that Harry Potter isn't for adults, but it kind of went to these really dark, real places. Um, and then it also had just an incredible sense of humor and an incredible voice. And it's something that, I really wanted to play with. And screenwriting doesn't allow. So then that's what got me infused into this, which was finding this character and then realizing like he could have that pluckiness and that charm and the charisma and also the self-destructive behavior and bringing that into prose was that really inspired me from that book. And then just I could list 1,000 movies probably that had some aspect of fusing into this story.
Hell or High Winter depicts a world where the gods of the ancient pantheons are still around, even though humanity has moved on. Most fantasy stories dealing with expired deities have the gods' powers diminish as their believers decrease. But your book portrays them as just as active and powerful as they ever were. What inspired that idea?
I kind of love the idea of the gods being around, but it's a lack of relevance in what that does to someone. That they are still who they are. It's just we've stopped paying attention and we've moved on, or the world's and circumstances moved on. So, I know there's some books people would point to American Gods as one where it depicts the gods where they don't have their powers and they're just sort of shuffling around the world, immortal. But to me, it's more interesting that they still have their identity. And so how does that identity adapt to ages when your entire self-worth is dependent on other people, and other people paying attention to you and adoring you and worshiping you? And I like the idea of worship in the book is a drug. And so you have the gods are all fighting each other over it. And like Hermes will encounter the goddess Lilith in the underworld, and she's just a total junkie, and she's completely, as she says, a junkie without a fix. And so by allowing them to still be who they are, but then casting them into this current context, I feel like there was much more room to really explore just some really interesting dynamics psychologically with them. Otherwise, it's just all about that they don't have power anymore. The problem is just like it's politics. They're not allowed to use that power. So what else are they going to do with their time and with themselves? That was really fun to explore that. I felt like it would just suck the oxygen out of all the characters if they were just husks of former selves. Um, versus, for example, Hermes in this version, he's a trickster god and he's a messenger, but he doesn't have messages to deliver anymore. So psychologically speaking, in today's world, he's just acting out. I mean, he's going to keep doing what he does, but now it's just causing total chaos, and it's just pitting one religion against the other. And like, I like to joke that like, he accidentally caused the Arab Spring and those sorts of things. So it's like, their lives still have consequence. And so then also that breeds a lot of struggle and kind of really interesting dynamics. For me, that's a lot also fascinating. How does Christianity or the other religions, which are still being worshipped, deal with the other gods that are still around them? And, in my version, like monotheism, they're like a corporation, that's not good for business if a monotheistic religion, if the worshipers realize there are other gods. So they have to keep them in line. And so that's kind of where that and why I found that so fascinating and why it was so much fun to write with that context in mind.
I love the blurbs you have on your website. Alongside humans heaping praise on the book are quotes from Prometheus, who exclaims, "This book is fire, and I know fire," and Thor, who gushes, "Finally, something that isn't Marvel." Aside from the humor, does a part of you wish the world was actually God-filled in this way?
I think yes, because of how much fun it would be, and also it would be horrifying. I think in today's world, you would see endorsement deals, you would see them on TikTok, uh, which is exactly what I'm also like, to me, that's fascinating. Like, what is the difference between followers and worshipers? So I think it would be a little bit of anarchy. Um, and I wonder, I don't think the gods could really cope with our world. I mean, we can barely cope with it. I think it seems to magnify the worst in people sometimes and the best. I will clarify, there's also plenty of examples of that. So as much as it would be fun, um, and it's fun to imagine how they would deal with what we have to deal with. Like I just wrote a short story based on the book, and it's Hermes signs on to the dating apps. Like, as much as it's really fun to go there, it also, like, I think in the practical sense, um, it would be pretty scary because I don't think they would handle it very well.
I think on a dating app as well, it's sort of unfair competition. If you're competing against a god, what do you have to offer?
Or it's just more frustration because they can't, it's just the whole system. It's the almighty algorithm. They're totally impotent compared to the inner workings of the apps that we all are slaves to now. At least that's my take on it. It's not about I think their power is no match for what Silicon Valley has created.
That's fascinating. So I think what you're saying is that the algorithm itself is kind of a god.
I think so. I think we've outsourced a lot of our intention of as humans to it. And so um I think we're sort of trying to grapple with that at the moment. I mean, just because I brought up dating, that's why it's fascinating for me. It's like we take one of the most important aspects of being a human, which is connections with other people, and we've given it over to something where you just enter in some data points and it's supposed to match you with the person you're supposed to be with. But it's not really about that. It's about servicing an addiction to coming back for more and more. And so now I'm getting down like a little bit of a philosophical tangent or maybe my own point of view rant about it. But to bring it back to like with the gods, um, I think to me it's an interesting thing because that's like we always like if you look at the oracles, you would go and the Delphic oracles, and they would go to have somebody like sniff a bunch of gas coming up from vents and then tell them what to do with their lives and what the future would hold. And we've sort of now come up with a new version of that. I mean, the algorithm for many people is just as mysterious as some hallucinogenic gas, spewing up from some rocks in the mountains.
Outside of writing, you're the president and co-founder of Symptom Media, an online mental health education and resource library. What can you tell us about that?
This is my other passion and my other work next to writing, and it's a company that's mental health education. We kind of like to call ourselves the Netflix of mental health. But it's a online resource library where we actually bring actors together with mental health experts from across all the fields to simulate what different mental health disorders or conditions or experiences look like. And then we also have courses and activities, and it's really grown to be this entire library that universities and hospitals and medical schools use around the country and around the world. And that's also just been a really powerful experience doing that, working with these people for over 15 years now, everything from psychiatric nurses to psychiatrists and forensic nurses and therapists. And obviously, I would like to think, and I do believe that work has always informed vice versa the writing. And it's really nice to know that, things that I've been doing creatively outside of creative writing actually has a use in the world, which is really nice. It sometimes surprises me when we hear, oh, wow, someone, actually had a course that incorporated this, or professors are using it with their students right now. So that's been a really enriching experience to get that point of view with all these different disciplines in the mental health world.
Hell or High Winter is a great read, and we look forward to your next novel, maybe in 10 years?
Hopefully a lot sooner. I'm literally writing the sequel right now and approaching the end. I look back at when I started my outline, which was in 2023. So it has been 3 years writing it. Not every day back to back. But hopefully a lot sooner. And, the first book takes place in hell, and I've designed this as a trilogy. So the second book continues and is an adventure through Earth and all the sacred mountains, and a connection of all the mythologies and how they're connected by a common source. And then the third book will conclude in heaven. So lots more religions are going to be bumping into each other.
Thanks so much for joining us, Andrew.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun, and I love your show, so I'm so happy to be here.
And to our audience, now back to your regularly scheduled lives.
Amusing Jews is here to amuse you. If you like being amused, go ahead and click like and subscribe.